That was funny the first time, about 3,000 times ago, yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Fun Show here at Big TV. This is the March, what is it? The March 12th edition.
Blizzard show.
The March 12th edition of the Fun Show here. We're all here. Michael is hunting for a tune over there on the keyboard.
We gotta do.
Let it snow, let it snow.
No.
How about a little Irish stuff? Because before we're back here, it will have been St. Patty's Day. It's next Saturday. Next Saturday, Evacuation Day
That's
in the
right.
city of Boston. Evacuation Day is a curious holiday. It's called Evacuation Day, and it's principally celebrated with the St. Patrick's Day parade.
It just is a coinky-dink.
It's not a coincidence at all. It does seem curious that the British decided to leave Boston on St. Patrick's Day, and you might suspect that they had no idea it was St. Patrick's Day, but in fact they knew very well it was St. Patrick's Day. And then along many years later came James Michael Curley, who decided that he could use Evacuation Day as an excuse to make a public holiday for St. Patrick's Day. So that was the opportunistic Irish governor. In between his stints in jail, he created Evacuation Day.
You know, he wrote a letter from jail too.
There's been a lot of famous letters written from jail. Let's see, we have Dr. King, we have Nelson Mandela, we have a number of famous letters from jail. Anyway, March 17th this year falls on a Saturday. And if anybody happens to be interested, at 10 o'clock at Saturday at the top of Dorchester Heights, we will be gathering to commemorate the evacuation of Boston. Henry Knox will be there, a number of other interesting people. Huh? I can't go because Henry's there. It's a funny thing about Henry Knox and I, we never appear at the same place at the same time. But it's a public event, and in fact, after that, at noon time, there'll be a lovely reception at the Shirley Eustace House at 33 Shirley Street in Roxbury.
Will that be?
It's open to the public as well.
Will that be brisket and?
No,
cabbage?
It won't be corned beef and cabbage. No, it actually will be historical. It will be paying attention to Evacuation Day.
Oh, historical, sure.
So it ought to be short rations and foul water, but we'll figure out what it is.
Well, so now where does the parade start from?
Actually, the whole day starts. I don't remember the name of it. There's a church in South Boston, which is the oldest Catholic church in America.
Oh, okay.
And
He knows.
I'm sure St. Augustine, the oldest Catholic church in Boston in any case. And it'll actually start with a mass there, and it'll process up to, they'll actually go to the Knox Monument, which is down off Melniacast Boulevard.
Okay.
Which is a marker of where the train of artillery came by. Then they'll proceed up to Dorchester Heights, and from there they'll proceed over to the Shirley Eustace House. So that's the plan for.
Now, does Brookline ever have any kind of parade?
Brookline does not do Evacuation Day.
No, I meant for anything.
Oh, sure, they have a veterans parade that Michael's always been engaged in, and they have Dawes ride through on Patriots Day. He stops at Devotion School. I'm not sure that there will be any room for him in the future to ride his horse up and stop in front of Edward Devotion House.
Okay.
We're having a technical glitch here. In any case, it has been brought to my attention that there is a totally ridiculous proposition to change the name of the Devotion School. I mean, they've just taken the largest primary school in Brookline.
That's PC.
In some sort of perverted sense
Pretty
of political.
crazy.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good.
And it appears that the thing is that Edward Devotion might have owned slaves. Well, if we start changing the names of everything of people who might have owned slaves, you know, Jefferson City, Missouri has been the capital of Missouri since about 1825. And now we're going to call it, what, Nelson Mandelaville?
Yeah.
Oh, why not?
And once you do that, then you've got a real problem on your hands. It's called renaming Washington, D.C.
Okay.
You know? I
Well-
mean, the thing is, we need to teach people about slavery, what it was, where it was, what it did to people. We don't need to try to bury history away from people's view.
Because then things start happening again.
Yeah.
Like look at the idiot who's occupying 1600.
I
Those,
kinda- I
those
kinda-
who forget history are doomed to repeat
Exactly.
it.
Okay, then Ivanka Trump is who we should talk about.
You think she forgot history?
I think she knows a lot of history. She's long.
She's very
critical-
mad at her father now because
Yeah.
she thinks that General Flynn is picking on her poor little hubby.
Well,
I think they ought to be glad her poor little hubby isn't in orange pajamas yet.
Yet.
I'm going to stay away from where this leads because you and I will end up rolling around on the floor, banging each other on the head with
We
something.
will.
Yeah, we will. I'm not going to get into it with her husband. And you have. There's some reasoning that would lead me to believe you have some sense about this whole thing. However,
He probably will be in jail before it's all is said and done.
well, maybe.
Except that his father-in-law will probably pardon him.
That's
There
what I
you
say.
are. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say.
But the
But-
thing is, being pardoned does not remove the felony from your record.
But the name of all this is nepotism. But the people.
Well,
out there-
yes, no, that's true. It is nepotism.
Maybe you could tell a little bit about that, the nepotism.
Are you a specialist on nepotism?
No, I didn't think so.
Yes, you know what it is.
You don't have any relatives who got a city job,
Yeah. Well,
but not
Three of
because
us.
they were your relatives.
right. Not because they were my relatives.
Well, all right.
I remember my father's company when I was growing up had an anti-nepotism policy, and which was funny because eventually they wanted to hire me, and it was just a summer job, and they had to get an exception to the company, but the exception wasn't that hard to get because the vice president of the company was the son of the president of the company. And they saw no conflict in having an anti-nepotism policy in spite of that. You know,
Okay.
one of the most American things in the world appears to be hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's like we invented it, right?
Well, all I know is that West Virginia teachers won the strike.
Oh, they did.
Well, yes,
They got the 5%,
they
right?
finally got their 5% statewide, and
I think that's good.
it is good.
It's a-
They
it's a
probably
poor
they
state.
probably deserved a lot
I was
more
going
than
to say they
5%.
deserve more than 5%.
I'd say they deserve.
But they didn't
more.
want to give them 5%.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they did 1%.
Anyway, so they made the point, and it's now inspiring a lot of other states for their teachers to say, okay, we don't strike just our city or our school district. You
Yeah.
know, we try to organize striking the entire state. And of course, Betsy DeVos would just close all the schools and fire all the teachers, and it would fall right into her hands. You know.
Well, that's
She wants to
significant,
do away with public education.
That's a kind of action that she needs to take. Is fire all the teachers, something on that order. You
Right,
know?
right.
Just
Just like
that's showing the
just
people
like
in this
firing
country
all-
that she means business.
just like firing all the air traffic controllers, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. that makes sense to me.
you know, she couches it in school choice terms. She was unable to answer why her programs had not improved the schools in Michigan, her home state, but it isn't really. It has, in fact, nothing to do with school choice.
No.
It is the beginning salvo thing to have kids get evangelical Christian instruction wherever they go to school, paid for by public
Oh.
funds.
Okay, do you
That's
know?
the reason she spent millions of dollars to buy her job.
Well, you could say that.
I just did.
Well, that's what I mean.
And I don't think I'm the first one.
But then there's
Wasn't she told that on 60 Minutes last night?
Yes. There are roughly, you don't know if you, do you know this? There are roughly 8 million passengers trips on China's Guangzhou subway daily. 8 million trips daily on the Guangzhou.
Trips or passengers?
Well, if you're making a trip, you obviously are a passenger.
No, but you
No,
said
no,
that-
no. Probably, on average, they make a round trip and it's counted as 2, I would assume.
No, I don't think so.
You go to work, that's a trip. You come home from work, that's a trip.
Right.
But the reason I brought it's not just this. They put special cars on these subway trains for women. Because-
Really?
Yeah. So what happened was the subway cars were empty, fairly empty, because nobody realized it. So the men went to the subway cars that were for the women, and then started some things called harassment and maybe even groping, an ugly business.
In other words, it didn't work very well.
No, it didn't. It did not.
I mean, that
work.
many trips reminds you of the Tokyo subway,
Where they
they
jam 'em
employ
in.
big pearly people to shove you
And
into
you know what?
the
Some
car.
of them aren't that big though. Some of them, I've seen some. Some of them
Yeah,
aren't that
some of
big.
the pushers aren't
and
that big.
Yeah, they have a almost like some of them have, especially if they're not big,
Yeah.
they have like a board so they can jam them in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cram you in. I always say that they should add olive oil
all of
because you're in there like sardines, right? So what's the fare on the Guangzhou trolley?
New York
subway.
Times did not give the fare.
They did not give a complete story.
They did not. That's true.
Okay. Fake news, the failing New York Times. Right?
I like that. Fake news is good. All right.
Incidentally, talking about the maven of fake news, 137 representatives in the House of Representatives in Congress have written asking Donald J. to please impose the Russian sanctions that passed Congress overwhelmingly. I mean, in this Congress, which can't do anything bipartisan, they passed overwhelmingly sanctions against the Russians, and DJ refuses to enforce them.
Well, they
What
got him his
about-
job.
But there's no collusion.
Listen, Dr. O'Reilly. What about that poison spy? He was a Russian who defected to the Brits, and he's dying now. He and his daughter, they're both
And they've
dying.
now determined,
Yes.
that the nerve agent that we used on him came from Russia.
Well, that's good.
They've identified it. It definitely came from Russia. I mean, they've done this before. Remember the guy who got like polonium
Yeah.
injected to
Yeah,
him from an
yeah.
umbrella
That's what I was
and
thinking.
stuff?
Yeah.
Putin probably considers this a successful mission and has probably given an order of the Red Star to the people who carried it out.
With a beat on it.
Now the thing is, they had to hospitalize a whole bunch of the first responders who showed up at
That's
the stuff.
right. That's correct.
Because the stuff
yeah.
hanging around was still
Everybody.
toxic.
Okay.
All right, so Michael is indicating by his motions that it is now time for the BAT Unrehearsed Thespian Society's presentation for this evening, which is actually skimmed entirely off the top of the vault,
Thank you.
being
It's
less
clean.
than a decade old.
No cobwebs.
No cobwebs. The paper is white, not yellow.
White.
It's really
Right.
quite good. And it is entitled Feedback.
Action. I keep seeing polls and surveys on TV and other media.
You mean newspapers, radio?
Well, while you're at it, you may not have to worry about the Globe soon.
Aren't you being a little premature?
On a scale of 1 to 10 with 15 items.
It's all about advertising in the internet.
Are you saying newspapers should be rescued too?
Anyways, I'm not a leader, so I'll toss it.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
but I really like investigative journalism.
I'm too busy to groom anybody.
Wait a second. Why don't we stick to one topic?
Which one?
This is mindless.
Okay, gas guzzlers are still selling well.
As long as the oil is cheap.
I'd buy an electric even though it's not on my survey.
What about the war on terror?
The overseas contingency operation, I assume?
Can we still refer to the surge?
Go ahead.
That's the deployment of additional troops now.
Now we know, okay.
You're certainly well informed. If you read my line, I'll read yours.
I read the newspapers closely.
Well, former Senator Ted Stevenson of Alaska finally won one.
Justice Department voided his conviction, I guess.
And he's a Republican.
Yeah, but Alabama Democrat Don Siegel is still in jail.
That wasn't in the survey either.
Maybe they'll find legal errors for ex-Governor Blagojevich.
Well, there's lots of errors there.
Well, I wish our government would do something on transportation.
No one ever talks about Milliken's junk bond episode.
It's getting a little confusing.
Yes, but I think the Queen likes Michelle.
Oh, so now we've moved the show to Europe?
Very fast on the internet.
None of that was on the poll.
Well, at least they found President Obama intelligent and pleasant.
Nobody talks about the auction of the Hancock Tower.
Is that relevant?
No, but the Rose Kennedy Memorial over the Big Dig is.
You had to bring up that dummy survey.
I resent that.
He should, but he can't remember why.
That's right, nothing but old retirees in the questions.
Oh, the new baby boomers.
Now that's flagrantly iconic.
I used to enjoy our weekly discussions.
But frankly, puzzling.
All this baloney about millions and billions.
Yeah, and trillions.
It's worrisome.
But Obama has to try some new ideas.
Like different food on the menu.
I wouldn't put it quite like that.
You know, this happens a lot to us.
We do get tired of traditional dishes.
And incompetent chefs.
So, we just do layoffs, unfortunately.
But some people see opportunities.
They want to open a new place.
Yeah, and the banks won't loan them any money.
Hey, this sounds like our country's situation.
But we gave them money to start making loans.
Yeah, well, it seems like they all belong to the same club.
President Obama is aware of all this, you know.
Got a lot of brain power around him.
Well, don't forget, it took Franklin Roosevelt a while to figure it out.
Yeah, like the loyal opposition.
They come out with a budget, all right.
Yeah, but it has no numbers.
Was that Congressman Biden's plan?
I just hope GM and Chrysler don't go bankrupt.
Why? Will the Japanese take over their factories?
He always jumps to conclusions.
It is what it is, baby.
Oh, so you think Belichick could solve this mess?
He prepares his team to win.
Comparing a Super Bowl to the global economy.
Well, it is about winning.
And if we can turn this collapse around,
And put citizens back to work.
We'll be winning!
you make it sound too simple.
There's a lot of pulling and pushing going on.
Yeah, well, particularly in Congress.
Don't leave out all those CEOs.
Former VP says waterboarding is okay.
Yeah, well, up in the Dakotas, they still call it snowboarding.
We need more innovation. Oh,
Featherless turkey.
Cut it out.
multi-purpose pills.
Sure, one pill does all.
You know, pharmaceutical companies are already testing those.
A car that can run on water.
Maybe in 30 to 40 years.
And what happens on Wall Street stays on Main Street.
He thinks he's brilliant.
But he can't explain it.
Well, it sounds interesting.
Does the White House do brainstorming?
What else?
So they think they're geniuses?
Big deal.
They get 4 years to figure it out.
In business, failure means a golden handshake.
Oh, the bonus, compensation.
Well, AIG, we pay and they get.
Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that.
But it's close enough.
And we didn't evaluate anything yet.
He's talking about metrics.
Or the parameters?
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 Actually, perimeters.
So, anyway, you get a lot of data to study.
Statistics.
Right. Without numbers, you're lost.
Do I need a slide rule?
A calculator is probably better.
Listen, you two fogies, I'd prefer a computer with a very good programmer.
Do our legislators know all this stuff?
They got bright staffs to do it.
They do have constituencies, you know.
And these kids know economics.
And went to business schools.
So we're in good hands.
Wasn't that a TV commercial?
The survey talked about that.
Maybe I should hedge and buy that SUV after all.
Blackout.
Blackout. All right.
Okay.
Feedback.
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 No.
So,
The Saudi princes were kept in a ritzy jail and tortured and beaten to give up billions in money, lands, and business to stop corruption in Saudi Arabia.
so is this the actions of this new prince who's taking
This is
over
the
in
Crown
Saudi Arabia?
Prince Mohammed, and the King Salman, he agrees with this. So, I don't know.
Well, if you're going to be tortured, it might as well be in a ritzy prison, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you
Peace
get
out.
the billions back, it's even nicer, I guess.
You want to hear something that really
No, I
frosts
don't.
my patooties?
Okay, all right. But I'll,
The salaries of presidents of colleges and universities has gone up 9%, and the average now is $570,000.
that's not enough. You can barely buy cough medicine with that kind of stuff. I don't know.
The potentate. However, at the top of the list here is the president of Wake Forest University, making slightly over $4 million a year.
Not enough.
Then we have USC at 3.2,
Cheapskates.
and I'm surprised to find the University of Pennsylvania at 3.1,
Yeah.
and Columbia at 2.5, and right here in our own backyard, the president of Boston University makes just under $2.5 million a year.
It's a big school.
Do you think Silber made that much money?
No, I don't. But he got money, though.
I have one word for that: obscene.
It is obscene.
Obscene. But at least they maybe make more money than their football coaches.
Did you know
Yeah.
illegal border crossings have dropped? Very few Mexicans are trying to get over.
More Mexicans are leaving the United States and going to Mexico than are leaving Mexico and going to the United States.
No,
blame
okay.
'em.
There's something about watching small furry creatures leave the ship,
Yeah.
Okay.
something about leaving the sinking ship.
Okay, leaving the sinking ship. All right, I get it.
But it's interesting because they're actually doing it.
it's
And
early.
actually more undocumented immigrants in the United States are now sneaking across the Canadian border than are sneaking across the Mexican border into the United States.
Oh.
It's a real problem
For Canada?
for Canada, all the people who are fleeing the United States to go to Canada. In fact, there is one party in Canada that is now talking about building a border wall between Canada and the United States.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know. I had something here that I wanted to bring up, and now I lost it. And I can't.
I
bring
thought
it
you
up.
said you knew it.
I did know it. I did know it. I can't remember what it was though. Elevating Xi Jinping. Did you know?
What were you reading Chinese newspapers this week? Is that what you're doing?
Xi Jinping is now the president for life in China.
Yes, and Donald thinks it's wonderful.
I do. I think it's very good. I like Chinese food, anyways, and this is a chance to.
I don't
I
like
go over
I
there.
don't like this persona that you're digging up.
Oh, well, you know.
But Trump is actually praising him for overturning his constitution and setting him up to be president for
Well-
life. Obviously, Donald thinks that should be for him.
I got something for you that Betsy would like to hear about. Vos.
Our friend
whatever.
DeVos.
Yeah, president is to offer training in firearms for every school staff in the country.
Can you imagine?
How do you like that? I would like to do a little shooting myself. You know. there's a couple of people that I don't like particularly.
Fundamentally insane.
You think that's
Because the fact of the matter is, our trained,
Burton
certified police officers are incompetent by and large with their guns. They tend to shoot more innocent bystanders than they shoot criminals. And they're the ones who are trained and certified. So you start handing out guns to people who have no training and no certification, and your collateral damage is going to go right straight through the roof.
Okay, but the Congress is doing nothing on gun control anyways.
Of course, and Florida's doing even worse.
Wait a minute.
They sit there with all those kids in front of them and vote down.
But Governor Scott,
I thought he just passed.
he risked his political career to support raising the age to 21. to
Right.
buy-
But did he ban assault weapons? No.
No, he didn't.
He risked his political career by saying you should be 21 before you buy a military assault weapon. It's a sad commentary to say that risks his career. Tickle the keys, my friend.
Oh, you think it's time? Look, it's not that early. I want to mention something about Daw Suu Ong San Kyun
What
He really
newspapers
has
he
been reading Chinese newspapers.
for refusing to protect the Rohingya in Burma, there where she
who?
lives. They've been murdered and they're fleeing for their lives. Have you read about this?
Burma. Burma's the country that we used to know
Myanmar.
as Siam.
Yeah. Well, now it's called Myanmar.
Okay, so why'd you call it Burma?
Well, it's the name that I remember.
Okay,
the
all
old
right.
days in World War II. I
Okay.
remember it. Okay.
So,
that's
is it the same country that was
It
Siam, or is that something else
No,
now?
Siam is different. That's
Siam is now Thailand, is it?
Thailand. That's correct.
No?
No.
It is.
Anna and the Prince of the King of Siam.
Right, Anna and the King.
All right, so we're very confused on Southeast Asian
Yeah.
geography. Anyway, so he's the leader of Myanmar. Oh, she, right? She was the one who was a great hero when she was in jail.
They're gonna-
And people were demonstrating around the world and petitioning the UN to get her released. And she was this great heroine. She finally got released. She finally got put into country, and she's a despot.
They're withdrawing. They're withdrawing the Elie Wiesel award that she was getting. They're withdrawing.
Yeah, it's funny. Once she got turned loose and took power,
Yeah.
she turned into a vicious despot.
Yeah.
It's kind
It
of
just
sad,
shows you how
yeah.
much you can predict stuff, which
Forget.
is not
All right.
much. There's a tune in there somewhere.
Bye.
Good night, Irene. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. We'll see you in our dreams. Good night, Irene. Good night, everybody, from the Fun Show here at Big TV.
Be careful of the snow tomorrow.
And
Right.
And George and Colleen. Good. Okay.
Stick tight to your home and family tomorrow as the great blizzard arrives. Stay warm, stay safe,
Stay in the
and
house.
spring is just around the corner.
What's
And I hope you remembered, if you didn't remember to turn your clocks on Saturday night,
forward or back?
Forward.
you're just tuning in now to see us.
Yeah, that's right. There's nothing wrong with that. At least they're tuning in something. All right.
All right.
Now wait a minute. Are we leaving yet?
You have 30
The
seconds.
racist scrawls marred a Nantucket site of the African Meeting House, which was defaced. That's not Chinese, by the way.
Right.
Okay.
A community
I think we should
turned
ban.
out to clean up this beautiful place.
I think we should ban spray paint.
You think so?
You're waving goodbye.
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
saying, "Hello, control room. Cut it."
Good night.